So being on the cutting edge does mean that, you know, there's some risk involved for you, right? And some of you kind of mentioned those concerns, that you felt maybe a little bit like, you know, are people going to criticize me? Am I going to be a target? Am I going to take heat? Is there going to be resistance that I'm going to have to manage? Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Okay? Which is why the noble purpose idea is so important, because if you're going to get wounded for it, it better be worth something. Okay? It better be worth something. So it's just an anticipation strategy, I guess I would say. And there are some things that I would ask you to think about, because for the most part, academics function in a way that change is fine as long as it's for other people. Right? If they have to change, it's a whole other proposition. So as a change agent, some of the things that I see you having to do, one is push the taboo conversation.
Can you write this down?
Okay? Sure. You got to push the taboo conversation. Do you know what I mean by the taboo conversations?
Bring it up.
I mean, I can't tell you how many meetings in my 25-year career in higher ed that most of the conversation was really about the subtext that nobody ever talked about, right? I'm sure that's also true for you, correct? So part of being a change agent means pointing out what other people don't want to talk about, right? So that means saying, are we really talking about this? Because if we are, let's really talk about that, okay? Instead of talking around that. And a lot of the taboo subjects have to do with turf, right? They have to do with turf. They have to do with personality conflicts, right? They have to do with unstated hostilities. Now, it doesn't mean you have to engage World War III, right? But to some extent, you will not move a change agenda forward with all this unstated stuff. It's just baggage that's going to hold you back, okay? And so what happens when people don't talk about the untouchable is that we just create more layers and workarounds and more stuff that doesn't coordinate that students have to go through because we don't have the courage to have the conversation we should have. Are y'all with me?
Boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Heart sinking.
It is heart sinking. What that means to some extent is that you will have to go to meetings, you know, swallowing hard and thinking about what it is you're going to have to say. And that doesn't mean it's all going to come out in that one conversation. But I do think that part of your job as an ambassador is to push that edge. That's the bleeding edge. Okay? That's the part of the adventure that's not so safe. Okay? That's not so safe. But damn, is it worthwhile. Okay? It is liberating to have a conversation about the stuff that nobody ever wants to talk about. But at the same time, I know how vulnerable it is to feel to say, are we really just talking about this? Another thing I would say related to the cutting edge is that you have to be willing to question the myths. You've got a lot of urban legend in your institution, probably. You know, our transfer rate is the highest in the, you know, whatever it might be.
Heard it on the radio.
Yeah. So whatever the myths are, or whatever the statements are, part of your job as a change agent is to say, is that really true? Do we know that's true? How do we know that's true? Right? Because that's how you build the culture of inquiry, is by questioning those myths. Right? And they may be true. But at least you'll know that they're not. They are or they're not. And the last thing is, when you, to kind of be on the bleeding edge, that also means you have to take responsibility for what you say. You know, and that's kind of the last thing is, you know, when you question, when you push the taboo subject, somebody's going to call you on your stuff, and you're going to have to say, yeah, I said that. Or I meant it when I said that. And so you have to be willing to stand behind whatever it is that you do say. And like I said, that's also very difficult. Because the hardest thing to do in the community college is to sit in a group of peers and say, and you know, none of us want to start sentences that say, the trouble with you is, you know, right. But, right. But there is a way to say that, you know, one of the perceptions that I believe is out there, and this is hurting us, is this, right? So whatever you say, you're going to have to be willing to stand behind. Okay, and again, I think that's a critical part of being a change agent.